It's a film.
It's not going to be a 5-setter.
Oh, there's the intro.
Hello, you are listening to Off Radar, It's a Movie podcast. I'm James Smith, a professional film and video editor.
I'm James Eatock, a freelance writer and illustrator specialising in 1980s cartoons.
And I'm Neil Brock, aka Nige, the man with two names, former film journalist and currently working in the games industry.
Each week, one of us picks a movie that all three of us either haven't seen in many years or in some cases haven't seen at all.
We each watch the chosen movie, return to the microphone and let you all know exactly what we thought of it.
He desperately needs her to survive.
It sort of handled some incredibly delicate topics incredibly well.
I will never watch this again. What was that?
If you fancy joining in and suggesting a movie for us to watch, why not tweet us at OffRadarPodcast
or email us on offradarpod@gmail.com.
If you like what you hear, please subscribe, share, and by all means, leave a review.
For now, strap in, turn the volume up, and let's go Off Radar.
I'm James Smith.
Let me just go and change my shirt.
All right. Hello, and welcome back to Off Radar. I am James Smith. I am joined by Neil Brock.
Hello there.
And James Eatock.
Hello there.
And we call Neil Nige. Thought you got away with it. For the sake of this podcast.
You always laugh like it's preposterous. So it's like, well.
So yeah, if you haven't listened before, this is how it works. We have gone away and watched a film that either one of us has suggested or you guys have suggested. I'm not sure who suggested this film, actually. I think it's James Eatock. There you go. And the reason he has suggested it is because right now, Wimbledon is on. And well, first of all, like us guys, we've bloody been to Wimbledon quite a few times. We've sat in the queue. We've slept in an apartment the night before, and Eatock
we've been burnt by the sun. Had
not a very nice apartment. Drank red wine in the sun.
Nige had spray tan, not spray tan. had
sun cream drips in the eyes.
In the eyes. Oh,
we've done the queue basically, and we got up at 5 a.m.
4 a.m. rise. Yeah, get down to that queue.
And me and you have even shared a bed, Nige. So.
Well, these are the things we do for the delights of a lovely green court during the summer at Wimbledon.
But I bloody love the tournament. I bloody love tennis.
Smith bloody loves it.
I play it a lot, but I'm a fan of the sport. So this film, you would think, would be written for me. But yeah, I guess before we get into this, this is coming out. I'll be honest, we're recording this just before Wimbledon, but this is coming out as Wimbledon is on. Who's your predictions for winning the men's and females titles?
Well, I think Paul Bettany's got a chance, but no wait, he's the actor from the film Wimbledon.
Oh, you got confused, Nige.
Tim Henman? Yeah, he's
Go,
going to
Tim.
do it. Come on, Tim.
No,
Come on, Tim.
My money is on Goran Ivanisevic, like one of the best finals I ever saw in my life. So
okay.
No, I mean, to be honest, Smith, I haven't followed tennis in about 2 or 3 years now, so I don't know who's where or what in terms of the
Djokovic
rankings.
won Wimbledon a year ago. Rafa's won the last 2 slams, but not as good on grass. Berrettini has won the last 2 grass tournaments, so he's up there. So, I mean, okay, if you guys don't know, I reckon it's going to be probably Djokovic, but your money, my money could be on Rafa doing it again, and maybe Berrettini getting to the final. But
and the women's game.
No, the women's game, it's all open, mate. Anyone could win it. Osaka's not even playing because there's no ranking points. It's all gone bananas.
What?
Well, that's right. Although Swiatek has won the last 35 matches on tour, but grass is different, it equals out a lot. So yeah, she's just won the French, but she's going to be clear favourite. But as you say, it's completely open. There's your little tennis. Eatock looks confused.
Well,
I was just trying to.
Don't forget the old school. So Andy Murray's still going to be there with his metal hip. Apparently Serena Williams is trying to make a comeback. We've still got our Federer as well, of course. The mighty Rog.
Federer's not playing. Sadly,
no, he told me he is. He mentioned the other day he's going to head down there.
Okay,
yeah, he's going to get in the queue. He's going to wait till the match starts. He's just going to jump on the court.
He's
going to
come in with
out
us
with Sue Barker.
Sue Barker's last tournament as well. There you go.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah. Smith, you mentioned your mate who you interviewed for the podcast was playing at Queen's recently. So how did he do? Like you said,
I interviewed Ryan Peniston in series 1 of the podcast, and he's had a really good grass court season. He's beat the world number 5 Casper Ruud at Queen's, and he got to the quarterfinals, and then he's actually just lost today in the quarterfinals of Eastbourne.
No way.
And he's never played on the main tour, so he's now got a wild card into Wimbledon as well, which
fantastic.
was speaking to him on the pod was his dream. So
that's so cool.
So it's a really nice story.
And a nice tie into Wimbledon, which is all about a wild card qualifier. Well, someone with a wild card who comes in to take on the world at everyone's favourite British tennis event.
So we are talking about Wimbledon 2004 film today. Etok recommended us. First of all, had any of us seen this film before?
I had, yeah. Back in the early noughties, I was all over it, mate.
Okay, I'd never seen this. Etok, tell us your story.
Yeah. I'll keep it brief. I saw it on possibly the worst date of my life.
Oh wow.
With Sue Barker.
Oh, if only Susie B had been there. No, it was a lass. This was on the very early days of online dating, because this would have been 2004, I think, and we met up. And I mean, early my dating in Nige knows the history of my dating. My initial dating techniques were never great. Oh, I'm going to go to the cinema with a date. You never take a date to the cinema.
Don't get to talk.
Never take a date to the Pizza Hut either. Oh, bloody hell! And
definitely not Pizza Express, as the Royals prove.
I missed that. What happened? So it's a really, really bad date, and came out. This was the one where she was crossing the road and she just walked out into traffic. My date, this is, and the guy was like, rolled down his window. He's like, "Oi, mate, control your woman." And I, instead of saying like, "Don't speak to her like that," she went, "She's not with me," because that's because she told the driver to fuck off because he beeped her as well. So it was a lovely date, and then she went back up north to Leeds. So I never saw her again. And then she said I was like all the men she had ever met. And I was like, what, sensible? So yeah, there we go.
So hopefully, if she's listening,
this one's for you.
We've just lost one.
Yeah, you've lost one very
of our
highly
Leeds listeners.
Yeah.
So the film itself was directed by Richard Loncraine. It was who, I'll be honest, I have not really heard of, and then looking at his career, he's directed like a couple of like episodes of Band of Brothers, weirdly.
He did one episode of Band of Brothers.
Did one episode of Band of Brothers.
He'll always have that going for him, but other than that, I would say
there's not much, is there?
It's a mixed bag.
And then it's got 3 writers: Adam Brooks, Jennifer Flackett, and Mark Levin. It stars Paul Bettany and mainly Kirsten Dunst, and then we've got quite a few stars popping up. Sam Neill,
John Favreau,
Sam Neill plays her dad, John Favreau the agent, and then James
McAvoy obviously
with his English accent.
It's definitely early McAvoy as well, like
super early
that kind of role.
Yeah.
And then there's a few cameos as well that pop up in it, like Robert Lindsay, and even John McEnroe has quite a lot to say as a commentary person.
Yeah, and throughout all his appearances, I love Macca, but he just looks like he's acting the entire time. It's like, I'm reading this dialogue. But yeah.
And Etok, I mean, it's not a hard one, but yeah, what's the...
I don't want to know if it's a hard one, Smith.
Well, it is, certainly. Yeah, what's the... I don't know how to talk now.
I love how you failed to navigate that. Anyway.
Should just stop and start again.
I'll just... So you want me to
need a second serve after that one.
Yeah. God.
Nige is just full of them. He is full of it today.
40 love. Nige, you picked this film for us to watch. What's the premise?
Right, so I'm going to give you my synopsis. I wrote a synopsis for this movie. I don't usually write them down, but I thought this film is very deserving of a very articulate and very specific synopsis. And hopefully I won't give away any of my feelings towards this film. So, here we go. In this highly complicated film, full of twists and subplots, Paul Bettany plays a lovely tennis professional who meets another lovely tennis professional played by Kirsten Dunst, and they have a lovely time falling in lovely love. But their love for one another jeopardises her lovely career. A career, by the way, which is concluded during the narration just before the end credits. That's not a joke. An ex of Kirsten Dunst's character shows up. He isn't lovely. Actually, he might be, but he's written with less substance than a Scooby-Doo villain, so we don't know anything about him. Then Paul Bettany makes it to the final of Wimbledon, where he utterly unpredictably plays the ex-boyfriend and also utterly unpredictably wins the final. And then they all genuinely live happily ever after. Even the parents who spent much of the film fighting now love one another. And the Earth becomes a tennis ball, and the movie ends with the amazing line, "Part of me was afraid that my life would just be over if I wasn't playing tennis, but the truth is, it was really just beginning." And reading that synopsis back, I felt part of myself die again.
Peter Colt was once a rising star.
Once ranked 15th in the world, I hear.
11th, actually.
Who never rose to the top.
That's Peter Colt, once ranked 17th in the world.
11th!
Now, in his final tournament.
Since this may well be my last Wimbledon press conference, I'd like to announce my retirement from...
It's Jake!
Tennis. That's my retirement from tennis.
So, Etok has given this film a 9 out of 10.
I was going to say, I don't think there's going to be a Nige twist to this one.
It was interesting because I had not seen this film before, and the first kind of part of it, I thought, this is basically an attempt at a Richard Curtis film.
Let's be honest, right? This film, and I think I've actually read this as well since, was written with Hugh Grant in mind, playing the lead. And there's so many characteristics which were Four Weddings and a Funeral, Notting Hill style, Hugh Grant. And credit to Paul Bettany, he steps in and he does a solid Hugh Grant impression. He's really likeable in that sort of clumsy British way. But yeah, it's Richard Curtis sort of stamped all over it.
The scene that sums it up best is so he first meets Kirsten Dunst character. And he
I don't get this.
Walks into the wrong hotel suite.
Which is never explained, by the way.
No, it's
they
not.
don't explain.
They were very busy when you're serving at a front desk. You accidentally give out the wrong keys sometimes.
Especially to high-profile tennis players. Yeah. And she's obviously showering, and he walks in and he's like, "Oh, sorry, fuck, shit."
I'm
he
very British. It's okay. I'm British.
He does a Hugh Grant, and I'm like, "Oh my god, this straight away. This is basically Richard Curtis film."
You need something?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I was given the key to room 1221.
This is room 1221. My 1221.
Oh, right, your 1221. Well, that makes perfect sense.
What makes perfect sense?
Well, you see, I'd reserved a more modest room, and now I'll go down to the front desk and thank them for this dreadful error.
Goodbye, then.
Yes, goodbye. And may I say good body? Shit. I meant... Shit.
But that scene is amazing because he walks in on her having a shower. She sees him staring and she calmly acts like he's already charmed her.
To be fair, later on she does say, "Oh, I saw you do this thing on the tour and I always wanted to meet you." But
like in that situation, I'm sorry, I just found that so absurd.
Much more charming when they're British.
And just to,
of course it is.
To set his character up, he's basically kind of like a journeyman tennis player. He's like...
He's Goran... They're basically... You can tell this film was inspired by Goran Ivanisevic.
Well, I felt like the character was kind of like Jeremy Bates. So for people who don't know British tennis all that well, Jeremy Bates was like the perennial nowhere man, where he was the best British player out there, but if he got to like the third round of Wimbledon, the country would rejoice because that was his kind of like expectation levels. He might have won a couple of finals. He might have got in like the top 50, 30, 40. I think Paul Bettany's character, Peter Colt, once got to rank 11 and won a couple of titles, and that's it. Yeah. So he's not really a name in British tennis and not really a celebrity in this film as that character.
And at the start of the film, you think, like, the whole kind of story of him then obviously going on and winning it, you think is kind of ridiculous. But actually, to give that part of it credit, since Emma Raducanu's come along and won the US Open from being in a position of nowhere, it is possible for sports to sometimes do crazy things like that, as much of a total cliche that this is. But also the other thing is he's very well off. His parents are rich. He drives like a sports car of some kind.
A very old kind of classic car. I wouldn't necessarily say it's like a top of the range.
Yeah,
I think it's one of those where he's been a mid-range earner for a while. He's comfortable, but he's considering taking a job as like the tennis director at like some schmarmy like middle to upper class club owned by Robert Lindsay or run by Robert Lindsay.
And one of the issues I have with this film is how it definitely paints these characters, everybody in this film, like this kind of upper middle class white privilege thing. Whereas, as I've said, like after speaking to like someone like Ryan Peniston, who's grafting away from Essex and, literally like until now having to pay for his coaches and travel and stuff, it's not painting the full picture of what it actually takes to
the film's asking you to do a weird thing. It's saying, hey, side with the guy. Like, if anything, the baddie in this film should be the well-to-do, and maybe I'm just saying every cliche in film history, but the baddie should be the privileged guy, the one coming up who you've got to root for, who's nearly got there. That's the one you should be rooting for. But it's like, you're asking us to root for this guy who's had all these opportunities and he's wealthy and he's
well, it's the Rocky story, isn't it? Normally with Rocky, like, it's coming from being...
Don't compare this movie to Rocky ever.
It's his last Wimbledon, it's his last fight, it's his last chance to fulfill a potential destiny, a dream, whatever you want to call it. And he's had his family's backing, apart from his like cheeky little brother played by James McAvoy, who's always betting against him. But it's kind of, he just wants that last hurrah, not necessarily winning Wimbledon, just to like win a match, just to not go out with a whimper. That's all he's actually looking for at the start of the film, because his career's basically gone. And I don't think that's like completely unreasonable in terms of to feel a bit of likability about the character. Like I said, he's got that Hugh Grant sort of charm, but things do tend to kind of fall on his plate to an extent.
He's about to meet someone who knows what it takes to win.
Oops, sorry, wrong chord.
Lives in property, right?
Yeah. $10 says you can't hit 2 in a row. You're exceeding my expectations.
Mine too.
Hit this one, and I'll sleep with you.
Ow!
Too bad. You could have used the workout.
The thing that I found really absurd is they don't show, or they don't give a real reason as, they try to explain in this movie, don't they, as, well, how come he's been playing all these years, now he's playing amazing tennis? Because he's found love. Fuck
it's because of in love, and
Seriously.
also because there's a comet flying over, and it's like that perfect like sync of these two almost like supernatural things.
I want the comet to hit the Earth in this movie. It's like, please.
Well, Kirsten Dunst as well. All right, let's talk quickly about Kirsten Dunst.
Yes,
she plays Lizzie Bradbury, who is like the sort of archetypal American, like, I think part of what they tried to get across with her character is the scene, as you said, where he walks into a hotel room, she's naked in the shower. Like, in any sort of situation, a normal person would be like, oh my God, cover up. But she's so confident and so kind of, I suppose, full of herself that she takes the initiative and she's the dominant one in the conversation, despite being in that vulnerable position. And I think that was kind of a clever way of just showing, like, he's a bumbling British person, she's a hard-nosed career gal playing tennis, clearly written by a bloke with this bizarre, like, idealised view of what someone should speak like.
She's also a very good tennis player in this film.
Yeah, she's one of the
whereas
best in the
he
world,
is,
kind of.
Like the polar opposite to him. And she's got, I've put tropical pushy dad. I think I meant to write typical pushy dad, played by Sam Neill.
Well, I think his accent could be from anywhere, because he's an Aussie trying to be an American, trying to be in England.
But and that is loosely based on, I don't know, possibly Serena Williams' dad, as that was very...
There's a lot of pushy dads over the years, aren't there?
It's
like
true.
Tennis.
It's very...
There's so many cliches. There's the pushy dad. There's like every single person that seems to lose a match in this film is like John McEnroe, like kicking off, smashing things, going bananas, shouting at the umpires. It's like anything a casual knows about tennis, they squeeze into this film. And so the pushy dad is certainly one of those.
My daughter's on a roll right now, but I don't want her to have any distractions.
Right, of course. Sorry, just to clarify, do you see me as a distraction?
One of my favourite moments in this movie, there are many, was when fucking David Gray starts playing, and I'm like, oh, of course, it's 2004, of course. Yes, yes, love, baby, baby.
Well, it's interesting because the first track that actually starts at the beginning of the film, I actually think that the start of the film is quite punchy. It's quite interesting. They put it together quite well. And it's RJD2, and it's this track called Ghostwriter. And I remember listening to this in like the early noughties and just thinking it's a great track. I actually think the intro works really well. It gets across the story incredibly quickly. This is the kind of film.
Nige, when the credits appear, you hear a tennis ball noise. That's how clever this intro is.
But it's extremely digestible. It's not trying to be anything special.
Threw it back up. Sorry, I'm being a dick.
It's your classic film that you find on like ITV2. It's really easy to watch. It's the sort of film you could probably edit half an hour out of just so you can sort out the adverts a bit easier, and no one would really notice. It's fine in that kind of. There's not much thinking going on. There's a nice cast. There's charming elements, and yeah, I think. But just going back to the soundtrack, I think that kind of soundtrack, it kind of takes you back to that era. And like you say, like David Gray or whatever his name is, it's really that kind of. For me, it was like when I was finishing uni, so sort of 2003, 2004, and it's very much of that time.
Yeah, and it tries to do that much like something like. Yeah, Notting Hill or Four Weddings would do, trying to, push you into this time and place. But you're right with the stuff happening so quickly. It's like the relationship, they fall in love pretty much within the first 5 minutes of this film. There's no real build up whatsoever. They pretty much get together.
Or depth.
I wouldn't say in love. She's like, I just want to shag with a nice guy, and he's kind of like, Kirsten Dunst.
This fall, the guy everyone counted out.
Go out there and decide who you are.
Might not be.
Might be a winner.
Incredible! This is the first seeded player he's defeated in 2 years.
So I will say this, for as much utter hatred I have for this.
Again, no spoilers.
Don't pull back.
No spoilers. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm going to give this a 10. Clearly, I don't have a problem with Paul Bettany or Kirsten Dunst or many of the actors in this film, because obviously Paul Bettany's incredibly talented. Kirsten Dunst
has been in some great films.
Well, she's in one of my favourite movies of all time, Spider-Man 2, which came out I think either the same year or the year after. I think it was the same year, God forbid. But I love her in so many of her movies. She's a fantastic actress, and Paul Bettany is just, I always enjoy him. He is like, you mentioned about the Hugh Grant comparison and stuff, but he's so charming, and he was I watched recently WandaVision. He's great in that, the Marvel series. Really, really awesome. But
you mentioned that film. The reason he was cast in that was because Jon Favreau, who plays Peter Colt, Paul Bettany's agent in this, remembered him from this, and that's how he ended up getting that role. So
because obviously he was in the he initially was in the, I guess he was Jarvis in the first Iron Man movie in 2008, which obviously Jon Favreau. Did he direct it?
Yeah, I think he did.
Yeah, he directed Iron Man, the first Iron Man one, didn't he? So this film made the Marvel Universe happen. Oh my God. I mean, this film was 10 out of 10. It gave me some of my favourite movies of all time.
I think Fav's always good.
He's great.
He's great. He's even good in this film. And to be fair, he didn't have a great deal to work with the script. But the thing that really doesn't work is the two of them.
The movie.
Together. I've talked about chemistry.
What, Dunst and Bettany?
I don't think they work whatsoever together.
She looks very young compared to him, and it's a bit weird.
I just don't believe it. I just don't believe that, they... And it might be the script, but, like we've talked about chemistry so much on this podcast, and for me, there's absolutely zero chemistry between them. And as always, with a love film, you need that. Sadly, I don't think that works.
I know that Lizzie likes to have her fun. This time it's different. She's falling for you.
Kirsten Dunst, Paul Bettany.
What do you think makes her so extraordinary? She makes a decision, she goes for it.
When you fear nothing.
Not to add to the pressure, but the entire United Kingdom is cheering you on.
Originally, they were just going to get the actors to play tennis, and then they realised, actually, tennis is quite difficult. Yeah. Like, they do all their own serves, and you can tell, because Kirsten doesn't serve, there's no way in hell she's a top-ranked tennis player. Like, Bettany's a little bit better in terms of his strokes.
Did they... did they have any like tennis training?
Yeah. And like Kirsten Dunst underwent like a really like physical training regime to actually get into the position where she looked like a viable tennis player. But yeah, I think it was one of those things where it was like, let's do this. This is a good idea. And then when they came to shoot it, they were like, oh, this isn't really going to work at all. And which is why you have that sort of bonkers CGI balls kind of flying all over the place. And like, I can't believe the final is like 25 minutes of that. It's like,
ridiculous.
How can you drag it out that much? And because I was watching it for the first time at the ages, and there was like half an hour left and it was the final. I was like, well, are the credits like 15 minutes long? They cannot make this so long. And then I forgot there was like a rain break and stuff like that.
Well, and I think one of the worst things about it is the dialogue. So,
Smith, I've wrote down some of my favourite lines, as I'm sure you have. Go for it.
Well, no, I was just going to say, like, so much like with like Rocky or something like that, you expect, but it's more like the Wonder Years, the way it's said and written and voiced.
Hey, the Wonder Years was good.
The Wonder Years.
Wonder Years was good.
As a complaint.
Well, the Wonder Years, as in like cheesy kind of, it just doesn't like.
You need to rewatch the Wonder Years.
Okay, maybe.
What would you do if I see the dude? What have you guys written down?
So I did the line in the synopses, which was the end of the movie line. There's also in this film there's a winner and there's a loser. That's actually in the film. They make that statement. But my favourite is
the conversation. That's just a guide for anyone who doesn't know tennis. Surely.
That is true, and it's also a guide for the concept of winning and losing. It's like there's one and there's the other. But my favourite conversation in the movie is. It's two characters talking. Obviously, it's Paul Bettany, and I think it's either his mother or his father or some other character I've chosen to forget. Decide who you are, and who. Hang on. Decide who you are, and who might that be? That might be a winner. Fuck off this movie. So embarrassing. It's just look. I get. I love Saturday morning cartoons. Christ, but they know what they are. You're writing, but this is supposed to be real life, the real world. It's like people don't talk like this. Unless you're making a very bad movie. And
no, sorry, go ahead.
No, go.
I was going to say, like, I don't think they've written this to be a real life movie. That's the thing. It's like, very firmly like not quite a fantasy, but certainly just a switch off your brain film. And it's kind of like, let's just make it as charming as possible. It feels like the film was made by someone who has only ever been in like London Zone 1 around like the most popular parts. And then like watched a few episodes.
And maybe went to Brighton on holiday.
Well, yeah, or watch like Last of the Summer Wine or something like that, where it's not good. Last of the Summer Wine, but either Darling Buds of May or something that's just in the countryside. Because their interpretation of like British people is so bonkers. It's just like that really cliched, just like middle class or big wealth kind of situation, that it does seem a bit like a fantasy. It's sort of grounded in the Wimbledon tournament and this kind of bemusing love story, but I don't think anyone would expect to take this film even remotely seriously. And certainly the dialogue and whoever wrote this thought that was the case too. Yeah.
I did laugh out loud I wouldn't say laugh out loud, but I did laugh at two scenes. One was McAvoy's first appearance. I think it's his first appearance when he pulls there's a shot and they're in the diner. They're in the betting shop. In the betting shop, and McAvoy pulls up on his bike, and then the bike just falls over.
He's got all the gear on as well.
Yeah, but because you're in the interior of the betting office, you just see him fall off his bike outside the window. That made me laugh. And the other thing that made me laugh is a very cliche of these kind of films. The end result is the cliche, which is, oh no, you see this in Notting Hill. Oh, all the photographers are outside our front door. It happens in this movie, but the moment how they get there is quite funny. Where Bettany and Kirsten Dunst are watching telly, and they're like, oh, "That's funny. It looks like our house." Oh my god! And the dad's walking up he's literally walking through the front door, and I was like, "Okay, that made me laugh." clearly didn't make you two laugh, so this film really is bad. if I'm laughing at the
the little Brighton trip is absolutely absurd. So basically they're halfway through a tennis tournament and then they drive to Brighton,
drinking alcohol all the way through it as well. Just like every evening I'll just have a glass of champagne.
But not only that, they get to the final, and between each, you normally got 2 days between each match, but not only that, they drive and it's like pitch black, and then by the time they arrive in Brighton it's morning, and it's like they've been driving
like an hour and a half away.
It's not that far. They've been driving for 8 hours around the M25, and then they have this little...
They didn't show them driving on the M25, did they? I don't think that's quite so scenic.
It cuts to a shot and it's clearly like the west coast of America. It's like, I don't remember seeing that many fucking beautiful coastlines in England.
And then they go and do like loads of tourist stuff in Brighton, and you're like, what? How long were they there in between one match? Both of them have got far in this tournament, but yeah.
Although they play the semi-final on like the out courts of Wimbledon, it's not like court number 1 or centre court. It's like, let's play it on like
17.
court number 10. It's just the semi-final with a British guy in it. Yeah, we'll just check that on court number 10, which I found a bit amusing.
The scene where I think it's where they first meet the ex-boyfriend on the Millennium Wheel. I don't know if you both will remember this classic moment of cinema
Jake
history.
Hammond, the bad boy American.
The bad boy,
he's a bad boy because he wears a headband.
He's got a headband. He's so scary. And I suppose in this film he didn't have any tattoos because he's a real baddie then, at least in 2004. But they're in the one of the. Of course, it's 2004. Of course, they're having a romantic date in the Millennium Wheel. So they're in the wheel. And it's true though, isn't it? It's like, this was...
Someone's got to pay for it. It's got to be like whoever made this film.
So they're in the Millennium Wheel and he's there, and the boyfriend just happens to be in the same pod. They've only just realised that as they're coming down the other side
to be fair, they are at like a Slazenger tennis thing. It's like a big tennis event. But yeah, he didn't have to get on at exactly the same time.
No, same time. But the... what happens is confrontation. Paul Bettany punches this guy.
Oh, yeah.
Go back and listen to the punch sound effect. I couldn't believe... I went back about 3 or 4 times. I was like, I must have misheard that. Yeah. It's... As you know,
it's like a Mickey Mouse.
We've all worked
punch.
in film. Yeah, it's a comedy punch, and it's like, I don't think that's the intention, because, like Nige said, this is very much kind of a fantasy film. But that punch sound effect, it's like, that's not that. They thought that was good. They thought this film was good, but they thought that was good. I was like, why? I broke.
Why?
I just broke there. Sorry, I apologise, guys. I just
you just malfunctioned. Yeah.
I did. I felt myself go offline.
We've been quite harsh about this film. I actually want to talk a little bit about some of the good things. Now, we mentioned James McAvoy. I think he is good in this film. I'm determined to do this. So, like the opening scene, Paul Bettany's character comes to their like house in Brighton, his parents' house, and he hears like sex noises and goes into a bedroom, and it's James McAvoy's riding like a sort of exercise bike whilst watching Deep Throat for some reason, just because he's that kind of character. And later on, basically during the Wimbledon finals, his parents, who start the film at like really at each other's throats, not really talking to each other like cats and dogs kind of thing. I think he's kind of living up in an outdoors treehouse whilst kind of watching Wimbledon unfold on like a black and white TV. Again, that classic British charm while she works in the garden. And they get closer and closer during Wimbledon, to the point where he walks in again and he hears like porn sounds, and he's like, oh, James McAvoy's character at it again watching porn. Basically, he almost catches his parents having sex. I found that quite amusing. I thought it was really nicely done. I think the relationship and the actors that actually play his parents are really good. I quite like the dynamic of the family, and likewise the dynamic with his best friend. A guy who plays a German tennis player. It's actually the guy from Game of Thrones who plays like Jaime Lannister. Is it? Like his German best friend, and he's a guy that he absolutely destroys in the tournament. And they have these occasional catch-ups, and kind of, you can tell there's chemistry between those characters. And I think, as I said, there's chemistry with the family. And I think that's largely down to Paul Bettany just being really good in this, like really charming. I think he handles the material really well. I think before this, there probably wasn't that much stuff that he had done. I don't know what he'd really done before this. There must have been a few things. I know he did that film with Heath Ledger, the kind of medieval
Was that not
A Knight's Tale? He was in that. I don't know what else he did prior to this, but I think he comes across really well in this. And we mentioned Jon Favreau, who's just dependable. Sam Neill, despite having a ridiculous character, it's still Sam Neill. And I do think, I know you were sort of a bit harsh on the chemistry between the two leads, but I think, again, for the kind of throwaway, trashy film this is, the sort of film, as I said, that you'll find on ITV2, I think it's fine. I think it's passable. I think, whilst the dialogue isn't great, it's the sort of thing you can just put on and turn your brain off. It's just, I found personally, the tennis scenes so unbelievably jarring. It made like the football scenes in Escape to Victory look like you're watching the World Cup final. That's how bad I found the tennis scenes.
Oh God, I'm tired, so tired. Oh God, I'm tired, so tired.
Before we go to the ratings, it's Nige's trivia time. The
tennis players they play against, when they're playing like generic nobodies, they actually recruited quite young, low-ranked tennis players to do them. One of them that they found that they were going to have was Maria Sharapova. But it turned out the director thought she looked so similar to Kirsten Dunst, they thought it'd be too confusing for the viewer. So there you go. So she wasn't in it. So apparently they're intelligent enough to follow this high-level storyline, but dumb enough not to be able to tell those two people apart. So there you go.
This movie is your favourite movie ever.
I enjoy it. I am not ashamed to say I enjoy this film. I've watched it a couple of times. If it comes on, it's the sort of thing that I'm not desperate to change the channel, because I quite like the charm. I think there's an element of it that, as I said, Bettany's really good. It doesn't take itself seriously in the slightest. It's got that idyllic perspective of British life and London and all that kind of thing, which I think is, whilst it's a bit ridiculous, it's fine. And I like the little nods to kind of, you got your McEnroe in there. You've got, I can't remember his name, but there's like a classic British commentator who's doing the tennis, and it's that kind of charm. You hear like Danny Baker and Chris Evans' voice
on the radio
during the film as well, and they were actually listed in the credits, which I found quite amusing as well.
Danny Baker.
But yeah, in fact, before this, Bettany had done like A Beautiful Mind, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang,
of course. Okay,
Knight's Tale. He was in Killer Net, which was a TV show I remember from like
about the internet
on Channel 4. yeah, the internet before anyone knew what the internet was. So yeah, Bettany had done a bit, but I think this was like one of his first, certainly like big commercial starring role type films. And yeah, I'm not going to give it a great rating. I think I'll give it, I might have leaned towards a 6, but I'm going to go with a 5, which is probably going to be much higher than what James Eatock gives it.
How dare you, Nige?
It's the sort of film you could, if you're on a date with a girl from Leeds, go check it out. So what more can I say?
You bastard.
I think we should leave Eatock till last, because I'm intrigued by his rating. Yeah, I mean, I had not seen this film before, and to be honest with you, I'd never really had any interest in watching it, and I was proved absolutely right. I like a good rom-com, but for me, this was not a good rom-com. It was barely a rom or a com. There was absolutely no chemistry or love between the actors. All of the actors are good actors, but there's a mishmash of actors put together with a terribly weak script. I don't mind Four Weddings and a Funeral. You know, I'll happily watch, like a British film like you're talking about. But unfortunately for me, like, I felt like it did take itself a bit seriously, and for that reason it didn't work. Like those films are very charming and of their time, but I don't think this is charming. I just think it was really badly made. There was nothing original about this film whatsoever. The writing is stilted, predictable. It's almost like someone had read a book about how to make a rom-com and then gone, I'm going to make a rom-com, because it just followed the filmmaking arc that we all know and have read about at film school. I can't think of anything that I really liked about it. I was kind of waiting for it to end. Yeah, I would never watch this film again. For me, I know I've kept my cards a little bit close to my chest here, but yeah, it's a 3.5 out of 10.
Wow.
Wowzers. But Smith I think Smith kind of summed it up in a way so perfectly, at least my opinion of the film. Described as a romantic comedy. It's not romantic or a comedy, really. Even though the two bits made me laugh, where that wonderful scene where the trailer should be for this, just McAvoy falling off a bike. I'd be like, oh man, I want to go see this movie. And then you have to watch the rest of it. But yeah, I don't know, man. The awful visual at the end where the camera pans out. And
it's so bad.
The tennis ball, and this is it. One note. My last note on this movie was there's no edge to this movie. And I understand Nige's point about this movie, kind of what we've talked about with other movies, when movies know exactly what they are. And I think Nige's argument, which I completely understand, is this movie knows exactly what it is. But I'm inclined to agree with Smith that this movie is trying to be something it's not. It's like, oh, we're making this wonderful British romantic comedy set to the background of tennis. And it's like, yeah, but you haven't done a very good job. But there are much better tennis movies out there. Go and see one of my Battle of the Sexes, Emma Stone, Steve Carell.
Yeah, that was really good.
Good.
Please go and see that. Maybe we'll review that.
Match Point as well, like Woody Allen.
Yeah.
films.
Yes, of course. Match Point.
That's a very good. Yeah, shout. And even the new, which I haven't seen, the King Richard one, which Will Smith won the.
He won the best actor
before
best slapped her.
Yeah,
best slapped her. Yeah. So my review of this, as I said, I really didn't enjoy this movie at all. I paid to go and see it at the cinema. Maybe I've got some
baggage.
Baggage.
I think there's a lot of baggage.
Bad date.
For you.
Bad Pizza Hut. Bad date. Bad Pizza Hut. Bad walk to Euston Station. Just bad throughout. Bad movie. Thankfully, it didn't ruin the careers of those involved. But yeah, I really did not enjoy this movie at all, in the slightest. I'm going to give it a 1 out of 10.
Wow. Wait a minute. So 1 out of 10. I think we have a record of the lowest rated movie by James Eastock.
Smith, I would sooner watch Nomadland followed by Mr. Nobody back to back,
and then Tenet.
than ever have to watch.
This is just so easy to watch. Both those films are like. Well, not Nomadland. I enjoy Nomadland, but certainly Mr. Nobody.
Mr. Nobody.
That feels like torturous. This is just like.
This is torturous.
Bubblehead.
It's bubblehead.
It's just like, just turn your brain off. You got a bubble.
1 out of 10. Wow.
Paul Bettany, charming man.
No, I love Paul. But like I said, I love the actors involved. This film
is
just
charming.
He is, but the film's still a pile of steaming dog shit.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to agree with that as well.
You put your tennis shoes in a big pile of dog doo-doo.
Smith calls it dog shit as well, but gives it a 3.5 dog shit. I give it a 1 dog shit out of 10.
Well, guys, let us know what you think of this. Do you agree?
Please
is it shit, or do you like it?
Is it shit, or do you like it? There's nowhere in between.
Email us on offradaropod@gmail.com. Tweet us at offradaropodcast, and see if it serves you well.